And good afternoon here from the Ozarks First News Desk. I'm Mike Landis here with Jamie Warner, and we're going to be talking about a topic that's on a lot of people's minds. Obviously, we have quite a bit of sunlight out there, and we're getting ready to spring forward on our clocks, which means we're going to be having even more sunlight come Sunday. A lot of people looking forward to that, but a lot of people, they're not really for that. There's been a lot of controversy in recent years about daylight saving time and keeping our clocks as is. So Jamie's here to talk about this. Jamie, you're all about the sun and the weather.
All about
so
the sun. I think
you
we're
know
all about the sun right
yeah.
now. I think when you have days like today, it's like, yeah, let's stretch these days out. Want more evening when it's nice like it is outside. A little windy,
Yeah.
but temperatures stay making it into the 70s. So
Yeah.
I think as the days have been warming up here over the last couple of weeks. This spring forward thing has
Yeah.
been on people's minds.
Yeah, exactly. Now, with this, there's, I don't know, call it confusion, but some people think, we're getting an extra hour of daylight. Really, we're not getting any more daylight per se. We're just kind of shifting the clock.
Yeah, all we're doing is we're taking our day, and then we're shifting it 1 hour. So the amount of daylight stays the same. It's just that our perception of when sunrise or sunset is changing because we're changing the clocks.
Yeah, yeah. From your perspective, I mean, we have some times right here. I know that we naturally get a little bit of daylight extra with the season. We're not talking about that, but we're talking about here with the actual changing of the clock. So what can you tell us here about what we're looking at with some of the dates and times that we can expect with this change going
this is
forward?
what's interesting, and I think this is what people this time of the year, we've come through. It's not been a long winter, but these last 2 months we've had some winter weather, and I think folks are ready for those longer days, and they're ready for those warmer days, and they're ready for those evenings where maybe they can go for a walk. So what we're looking at sunset times today before the time change versus what they'll be after the time change.
Yeah.
So today our sunset is at roughly 6:13. So we've been used to that. I mean, our days are getting longer.
Yeah.
On Sunday, after the time change, after we set our clocks back or set our clocks ahead, 1 hour, our sunset will be at 7:15.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's some good walking times, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I like getting out there and enjoying that. There's been a lot of controversy, though. We were talking, in fact, when we started this segment, writing it yesterday, it was going to be, is this the last time we have to spring forward?
And
because
you and I have
yeah.
had this conversation. It's one of those things where in my brain, this was probably about a year or so ago. I think maybe when we were going into the time change back in the fall, I was like, "Are we still doing this?" Didn't they vote to just stick with one time, whether it be standard time or daylight savings time, and I was wrong.
Well,
I was wrong.
There's been so much back and forth on it, I know, recently. And President Trump, when he was campaigning, and even after he was elected in December, was saying that, daylight saving time is a drain on the economy because of, different reasons. And so he said Republicans were going to do away with it. And so we went into yesterday expecting this would be the last Sunday for that. And then I had, written the notes for this, and around 4 o'clock he was like, no, we're not going to do that because it's still a 50-50 split. And so we're going to do it at least one more time. Who knows how many more times?
Well, and that's the thing. Over the last couple of years, there's sort of been this kind of thinking that we were finally going to do away with daylight savings time. We were just going to stick with standard time, or we would, I think, some may want to go to daylight savings time because of the sunsets and where they align with that. But yeah, I mean, I feel like this has been something that's been talked about for years and years. Again, a couple of years ago, I think it made it through one chamber, but maybe it didn't make it through the other chamber.
Always
and
hit
that's
some
how it went
roadblocks.
down.
Yeah.
And it's like, is there really a big push to keep this? I mean, I feel like you talk to anybody and everybody wants to, they want it to just stay one way or the other. I think a lot of folks would rather it be daylight savings time, but they just want it to be that and not keep changing around every year.
Yeah, I think that's what we're running into, because there's a lot of political issues where obviously, it may be split, but it's the side that has a little bit of a majority that can make the change, if you will. And so I think this one is literally so split that anytime lawmakers are talking about this, they realize there's no one majority one way or another.
But is it split? That's the thing. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know where the polling is. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that it's split. But I think I was having a conversation with somebody, and that was kind of where President Trump came down. Was it's a 50-50 issue, and he didn't want to pull the trigger one way or the other because again, it was a 50-50 issue.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like we're just sort of still in limbo on this.
Yeah, yeah, and it seems natural for those of us who like the summer and the sun. We think, well, hey, why wouldn't we want more sun? But there's a lot of reasons why people don't want it. A lot of it has to do with the actual change itself on that day. They say that it kind of throws your rhythm off.
Yeah.
They claim that heart attacks, strokes, car crashes increase during that day. But there are also studies that show that overall year-round more crashes happen at night. So if you're adding an extra hour to our darkness for those months, would car crashes go up? So there's really studies, once again, 50-50 showing both ways.
Sometimes I feel like you can make a study go any which way you want it to go.
Yeah.
You know that sort of a confirmation bias thing. But you and I were talking about this last evening in regard to this subject, and that is, I think from what I remember when we're in, when you're in school, elementary school, junior high, high school, at that stage, you talk about why daylight savings time is a thing.
Yeah.
And I was under the impression, based on what I remember from school, that it strictly had to do with how it helped farmers. And you said that's not really how this started out.
Well, interestingly, because I was wondering as well, being from Missouri, there's a farming state, and so I'd always heard that as well. It benefited the farmers, but it was actually in 1918 during World War I, the thought was, if we have the extra hour of daylight, that's one less hour that we're burning coal and burning fuel for lighting our homes, and so that could be used for the war effort, to paddle, for the battleships overseas, for the factories putting in ammunition. And so after the war ended, the government was like, okay, we're going to go back to the way things were, and that's where the farmers came in, because the farmers were thinking, hey, we kind of got used to this, we enjoyed having that, and so they were one of the ones that pushed for that.
And then World War II came along, and we're kind of in the same scenario as World War I.
Exactly, and there wasn't as much fuel to go around, and so things were rationed, and so kind of went back and forth there until the 1960s, and that's when Congress was like, let's make this a permanent thing, and that's when we kind of got it, before our time, obviously, but that's when we got into this whole schedule, spring forward, fall back, and we've kind of been there for a while.
and honestly, I think so many people have been born into this arrangement now. I mean, I don't know that there are very many people that, were alive before this was a thing.
Yeah.
So that, this is just a part of our lives. This is the way we feel like it's always been and the way it always shall be. But I guess it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be, and you obviously you're a scientist, and so it's obviously how things have been in the winter. Standard time, that's how things are technically supposed to be. Saving time is artificial.
That is the artificial phase. Well, time in itself, it's
made
all
up, right?
artificial. It's how man kind of helps to regulate things for man. But the daylight savings portion of this is like you said, the artificial. I mean, we should, by rights, had the decision making not been made during in the 1918, had that not gone into effect, we would be on standard time,
right?
And that's what we would be on year round.
Yeah, exactly. Now with the sun, obviously we have this artificial setting of the time, but with the seasons, we actually do get a little more and a little less sunlight, just as the the Earth goes around the sun. And if we were to put in permanent standard time, would that affect really the sunlight we get in the mornings? I know some people were concerned that kids would be getting up and going to school in different aspects of darkness and such.
I think you could make arguments either way. Like I said, there are people that are in favor of standard time, and then there are people that are in favor of daylight savings time. I think, for me, the impression that I get is most people would prefer to have that extra hour of daylight, in the evening, because then that allows them to finish up with work and still feel like there's some day left,
time to get something
before they have to get in the house and get ready for the next day. I think that's where most people are at.
Yeah, and it improves mental health for a lot of people. Once again, there are studies showing that the time change throws people off and puts them into a funk, but there's also studies saying if you've got that extra day, I know it makes me feel good to be able to have a nice evening walk at 8:30 in the summer.
I think for me it is one of those things. It's one of those rites of spring. It's just that's what we do. It's springtime, and it's springtime because we're setting the clocks forward 1 hour.
That's right.
It's kind of the same thing in the fall.
That's right.
It's fall because we're setting the clocks back 1 hour. Hey, you have that graphic up right there. And, let's talk about, we spring forward this weekend. Here's the other thing that's interesting to me, and I think they tried to pick like the time of day when it wouldn't impact people to change
To
the
do
clock.
that, yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, supposedly we're supposed to do this at 2 a.m. on Sunday morning. I don't know who's sitting up at, you know.
I
waiting
am.
to-
I'm
wait,
a- I'm
are
a
you
late-
waiting till 2 a.m. to do
Well, I
this?
don't usually wait
You're like,
for it.
I
I'm a
can't do
night
it
owl.
early.
I'm there.
Now I gotta do it early. They
Yeah.
told me to wait till 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Yes. So you know, bottom line is sometimes Sunday morning you set the clock ahead.
Yeah.
1 hour. But at that time, you know. And it's not trivial when we tell you, hey, check your smoke detectors. It's a good
Sure.
time to do that as
That's-
well because, you know, how many times have we seen these house fires where there was no working smoke detector?
Right.
So this is a
Yeah.
time, you know, where you can make sure your smoke detectors work. You make sure they have fresh batteries in them, just so that you can get that alert when there's a fire
Yeah.
in your home.
You're bringing this up about the whole aspect of changing the clocks. I remember when we were growing up, one of the biggest arguments that people was it's a big, hairy hassle to go through your clock
man.
and change every
Are
clock
you a
on the
clock
wall.
guy?
I don't have any. I mean,
You don't have any clocks?
I've got my phone, which does it automatically. I don't have any clocks on the wall, so for me,
You are a modern man.
I am, and you don't have to do that. But if you've got a bunch of clocks around your house, I understand that is an inconvenience. But some people say, you know, it's worth it. You have to go change your clock. But think about all the things you get that's positive
here's
for
the
that.
problem for me is I'm a clock guy.
Okay.
I like clocks.
Yeah.
I like, you know, I have a grandfather clock. I have so many clocks that I have to change. I think and this isn't an exaggeration. I think I have 12 different clocks that I have to change in my house.
Oh my gosh! Wow,
Yeah.
that's a lot to get.
It's a
That
lot.
that might take a while.
So yeah, you know, you want to try to find that person that absolutely hates having to change the clock one way
Yeah.
or the other. I'm just like, pick one.
Yeah,
I do. I hate having to change all those clocks.
And I've made this admission in years past. The one clock that I have that needs to be manually set is my car.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do it. So for part of the year, like right now, my clock in my car is 1 hour off.
Yeah.
But come Sunday, it's going to
Yeah.
be correct again. So
It's that what's the line about a broken clock is right twice a day?
exactly,
You know,
yeah.
Is that kind of how it is in your car?
Yeah, and there may be a time or two where I may be running, you know, behind or my brain's elsewhere, and I look at the clock and
Yeah.
have a slight heart attack, realizing I'm going to be late to work.
You know, we always caution people about that. How
Yeah.
you know, make sure you change your clock. You don't want to get to work late. I don't think that's ever happened to me.
Really?
I don't
Okay,
think that
okay.
there's ever been like, oh, I forgot to change the clock.
I've heard of
But,
the stories. Yeah,
I mean,
but-
I'm sure it happens. I'm sure it happens, but I've never run into that, and that's what the 12 clocks that I have to change.
Okay. Well, you've got a chore ahead of you this Sunday. It sounds like. So me,
Yeah,
I'm just going to
yeah.
be. I'll be thinking about you and all the work
The
you got to
worst,
do.
I
so.
think, the worst for me is like changing back. I have a grandfather clock,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't just like wind the minute hand back because you'll hit resistance, and I don't want to
Oh,
tear up the gears.
no,
And
of course not.
So it turns into a process of you set it back as far as it will let you, then you let time go by, and it'll kind of release, and then you
Oh,
set it back
interesting.
some more. But
Okay.
yeah, that's the one that I
Dealing
really hate having to
with the
change.
gears there. I know a
Changing
lot.
forward is easy.
Yeah, yeah. I know a lot of the controversy seems like it has to do with the actual days of the change itself. You know, throwing people off, and even me. I enjoy the sunlight, but it does take you a few days of trying
Yeah.
to get used to it. Because
It does. You're right. I think that there is a lag of, I would say, at least a few days where just, you know, I mean, you're checking the boxes, you're doing the things you need to do, but it just feels off.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
feel off until you can get back into that normal rhythm again.
Right.
You know?
And with that, that's where there's been some disagreement because people would like the clock to stay the same, but do we want to keep it on standard time or daylight time? Would we like to have, you know, sunsets at 8:30 in
You know,
December, or do we
maybe-
like, you know, the
Maybe
darkness
that's how
more?
we solve this thing.
Yeah.
We just put the vote to the people.
Oh, how about that, right?
Why can't we do that? Why can't we just have like a vote on it, you know?
Well,
and
well,
then
Elon Musk put one up. I mean, obviously he's with Doge, and he's made comments before saying we need to get rid of it, and so he put a poll on X that's probably not official, but maybe that's how he's going to get a.
what was the result?
I've not seen it yet.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
so it, once
all right.
again, it looks like it was 50-50.
No, I'm
Maybe that
curious.
swayed.
I wanna know.
Maybe that
Yeah.
swayed the president on that. So that would be a debate: is, you know, what do we stick it on? And it seemed like 2 or 3 years ago when lawmakers were talking about it, they were saying let's keep saving time permanent. Let's have lighter light. But the president, when he was making his promises, he was saying let's put standard time. And so then we would be having these earlier nights. I think it would seem weird to be in the middle of July, out having a ball game or something, and it
Yeah.
getting dark early, but we'd get used to it.
I did, like I said, I had a conversation with somebody about this, and I think that they said that President Trump said that he preferred daylight savings time
Okay.
to standard time
Yeah.
for that reason. He likes having, you know, the later sunset in the day.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Okay.
let's talk about those sunsets. So,
Yeah,
because
let's do that.
regardless of where you stand on this issue, one thing that will happen, our days are getting longer.
Yeah.
as we push. We're not even we're not technically to the spring season.
Well,
we're
sure.
in meteorological
Yeah.
spring.
And what
but
date is that? Remind us
That's
the official.
March the 20th, if I remember correctly.
Okay, so ways to go still.
Yeah, got a little ways to go, but the bottom line is, we're at that time of the year where the days are getting longer and longer, and sunset is coming later and later. So let's show that graphic as to where we're going with this, because I think everybody enjoys having these longer days.
Yeah.
This Sunday after the time change, sunsets at 7:15. Look where we are by Memorial Day. Memorial Day is not that far away.
No, it's coming up.
Yeah, I mean, what is that, about 2.5 months away?
Yeah,
By that point, it's well after 8 o'clock. And then when summer begins, we're at that longest day of the year, and then the days start getting shorter again. It's at 8:36.
How about that? And so it seems like even at 9 o'clock, when we start our newscast at 9 o'clock,
Still light outside.
We've got the tower cam, and so it's pretty high up, can see the horizon, but it is kind of cool to be like, hey, it's 9 o'clock, and I still see some light out there.
Yeah, and the further north in latitude you are, the later that is.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's another thing to kind of keep in mind.
Yeah, so a lot of folks looking forward to it. Just kind of wrapping this up, it'll be interesting to see what happens with this politically, because even though President Trump has said, hey, we're not going to make a decision on this, you've got some states, including Missouri, I believe Wisconsin, and Oklahoma, they're talking about doing it themselves. So you would have a strange patchwork across the country.
I feel like that's not going to work. You can't do it. It can't be hodgepodge. And I know that there have always been some holdouts in the nation, but they're very few. But I think if you start getting to a level where you have neighboring states on different times, it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
I know there are time zones.
Yeah.
But I feel like you can't do this hodgepodge. I feel like it. I don't know why it can't be a national vote. I don't know why we can't decide as a nation whether or not we want to be on standard time or daylight savings time.
It's semi-trivial, but it is a big deal. I mean, this is a part of our life.
It's the thing that we talk about. Whether it be in the fall or in the spring, it's a big. It's a big subject.
And we talk about this every time, falling
Are we
back
still doing this?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and it may be that way for a while, because I don't think the discussion is going to go, until a decision maybe is made. But it'll be interesting to see, especially here in Missouri, if these individual states create this patchwork. I mean, it is. You mentioned time zones. It is one thing, going from, Illinois to Indiana, but it's going to be one state here and there. It would exacerbate that.
That's blocks of longitude. So at least there's some structure to it. If you start getting to a scenario where within a time zone you have like states on one side of this or on the other, it just that's a big mess.
Yeah. All right. Well, so until then, we'll keep enjoying the sunlight. Maybe some people like less sunlight or whatnot. So I will have this entire conversation on our website over on ozarksfirst.com, and I'm sure we'll talk about this more on the news later on tonight. I mean, it's a part of the weather technically. I mean,
it is. We talk about it in those weathercasts.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate you tuning in. Once again, we'll be seeing you tonight for Ozarks First News at 5, 6, and 6:30, and 9 and 10. Plenty of times to catch us there. So we will see you then. Enjoy that sunlight, and we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.